I have the greatest respect for horror films because I hate them. They scare me, I don't like being scared, but yet I have the greatest respect because you either do horror well or it's a comedy. There's no in between. And so this was a very tricky production. So I went back and dug into something from my past, an old record that was played to me in music class called the Banshee. It scared the crap out of me as a kid, and it's about this ghost witch thing that scares people, and I kind of use that as my inspiration for the movie. And I think it turned out really well. We leaned a lot on the audio treatment. That was a big deal for me because we all know in horror, if there's not a good soundtrack, it's not going to sell. And so had a great team. And one of the things a little different from some of the other film projects I've done is typically I have these huge teams. This one was a very small team. I had 3 ladies. It was an all-female cast, which was pretty fun. And then I have a cameo at the end, but I don't count me. And then it's basically myself shooting, directing, editing, writing, and Rusty Yannock did the soundtrack, who did a couple of other soundtracks for the 48. And Amy Masheter did my assistant directing and did a lot of great things to help me out. And that was essentially the team for the most part. This seems silly because I knew going into this that soundtrack plays a big role. But even more so going in this because the thing with horror films, especially editing, because it's such an editing process, is my fear was I'm gonna shoot it, I know what happens. I'm gonna edit it, I'm gonna know what happens. I'm not gonna get a good feeling for what's scary. So every time I was kind of gauging, as every time we added another layer to the editing or to the sound, it kind of sent shivers up my spine a little bit. I thought, okay, that's a good sign, and it kind of wear off because you see it's 7 or 8 times editing. But every time we added another layer, but sound was such an important part of it, and I know when Rusty added the final mix to the sound to it, it really took it to another level, and we had rough tracks and just scary stuff in there to just kind of give it a vibe. But when we put Rusty's soundtrack on it, my goal really was, could we strip the video away from this film? Could you listen to just the audio and be scared? That was kind of my guidelines. Like, could this be a radio show? So that was one of the things. So I really learned that, just like we all know, audio is really important. Even more so now, I know audio is just so critically important that every little bit of that had to be perfect on this for me. The ultimate story is the key. Can you buy into it? Is it something? I looked for a lot of things from old classic horror movies and suspense thrillers, and one of my favorites is Duel, Steven Spielberg. Everybody can identify with that. We've all had trucks following us. We've all had suspicions, and it's like when you can put yourself in that film and say, "Oh, I know what she's going through. I know what he's going through, or I've been there." If you can put that person to experience that horror, or if it's a great film with a big rush ending that's a happy ending, whatever it is, the content is king. Can I put my audience into this film that they're like, oh, I'm into this because you just hit me where I live? It's really fun to see that filmmaking is just done extremely well here in Columbus, and I'm excited to be part of that.